everyone. My name is Katie, and I am the founder and president of the NeoCyber Institute. I'd like to welcome you all to the second interview in our cyber career series. Through this series, we want to show students what real-life cybersecurity is like and how they can get involved. We hope you all enjoy this interview, and now I'll hand it off to Madeline to introduce our speaker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline. I'm the Vice President of NeoCyber Institute, and today I'm very excited to announce Ron Woerner. Ron is a President and Chief Trusted Advisor at RWX Security Solutions, Professor at Bellevue University, featured speaker at conferences like RSA and ISACA, and was a 2014 Cyber Patriot Mentor of the Year. So Ron, thank you again so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, so we're going to start off with our first question about what was your first exposure to cybersecurity, or how did you kind of find the field?
I stumbled into it like so many when I started in computers. So I started in computers long time ago. And back in the day, in order to play computer games, you needed to program them yourself. And so that's how I actually started. I saw these cool things like computers, and I just wanted to begin playing on them like so many, which led to getting a computer science degree at Michigan State University, which was nicely paid for by the US Air Force. And then I had a career right out of college, which I know sometimes could be the challenge. My role in the Air Force was as an intelligence officer. So what does that mean? Well, an intelligence officer would deal with a lot of secret and confidential information. We learn how to protect that information. So you combine my computer science background with learning how to protect information. Just in the early days of information security, I was just naturally drawn to it. I've also acted as a systems administrator, working with Unix, precursor to Linux, making sure the Unix Linux system stayed working for companies like CSG International, Mutual of Omaha, etc. But this was before we had someone dedicated to cybersecurity. I just wanted to make sure no one could touch my stuff. So I learned how to protect it. And just from there, I began to build and became the focal point for cybersecurity for different organizations. And then I realized I like working with people and teaching. So stumbled into teaching about 10 years ago, and that got me into mentoring and where I am today.
Amazing. And so a quick question about your roots in cybersecurity again. So what was something you wish you knew when you first entered the field of cybersecurity?
Something I wish I knew. So one of the things in getting a computer science degree is you have to learn a lot of the theory behind computers, the Bayesian and Turing machines and logic. And it's like, why do I have to learn this? Well, actually, that's the basis for a lot of what I do, both with computers, computer science, IT, and cybersecurity. A lot of it is based on the same philosophies and concepts that have been around for years. So, Madeline and Katie, you may just think the cybersecurity stuff, it's all brand new. Nah. We've been doing this for 50 years, just about. With the introduction of the internet back in the early 70s, Unix as it was developed at AT&T, then AT&T Bell Labs. But it's all based on the same design principles written about by Salter and Schroeder. So you can look up Salter and Schroeder design principles. And if you're a Star Wars fan, like so many cyber geeks are, you can look up Adam Shostak's discussion and video about Salter and Schroeder's design principles using Star Wars as an analogy, which is just hilarious. But it's understanding there are core concepts on which everything is built, no matter the platform.
Well, so if you had to say what your own favorite part of cybersecurity is, what would you say that is?
Oh, favorite part, helping people solve problems is about it. I have multiple hats. I teach for Bellevue University. As you mentioned, I have my own cybersecurity consulting company. And in that role, I'm often brought into small, medium businesses who need to build a cybersecurity program. And they really don't know how to do it. So I'm coming in and I show them the steps that any organization can take to become cyber secure, which has multiple parts to it. It's not only how to reduce risks, but how to prove compliance. Because compliance, the rules that you need to follow, the policies, laws, regulations, those can be really scary. Am I going to be fined for not being cyber safe is a fear for so many organizations. So just showing them that there are actual very common steps that can be taken over time to secure, whether you're securing yourself online, personal safety security, or securing a multinational organization. Similar types of steps.
So in your consulting work, what would you say is one of the most common issues that you see with the company?
Common issues. Well, often an organization, when I'm starting with them, they'll kind of give me one of these, we suck at security. Basically saying they think they're so bad. I talked to them and I realized they're actually doing some things really well. So it's building on what they're doing well and using that to make continual improvements. It's actually something known as the Capability Maturity Model, the CMM, out of the Software Engineering Institute, Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh. It's how do we continually make ourselves better across time, which is the approach that the organizations need to take. But I really enjoy when I can watch an organization that I'm helping. Same thing with students, whether they're the high school students that I mentor or the college students that I formally teach, watching them be better today than they were yesterday, watching them continually improve. It's just, that's really what brings me the joy in the teaching and the consulting.
So I know we have a lot of high school students watching this interview. So can you tell us a little more about how you mentor high school students in particular?
Sure. So for the high school students or anyone who's watching, why do you like computers? Why are you watching this? It might seem like a silly question. So many like gaming. Okay. Raising my hand, I'm a gamer. I admit it. Yeah, exactly. There's not necessarily a whole lot of jobs with gaming. You might be drawn to how do we just keep the systems up and running? So which may or may not be just cybersecurity, or you like to code, you're a programmer, you want to learn more about Java or Python or C#. But how do you begin to build towards that? So when I'm talking with the high school students, it's taking what interests you, what are your passions, and then learning how to develop those over time and being okay with not knowing anything. It can be really awkward because we're all noobs at some point, right? I'm always a noob. Don't be afraid of announcing your noobiness by saying, you know what, I'm new to this, but I really want to learn. There are mentors throughout the US, throughout the world who, like myself, go out and help high school students. You can reach out to a community like NeoCyber Institute, like the other speakers that you're having involved. Be part of a cybersecurity competition like Cyber Patriot or National Cyber League, just to gain exposure to what it takes. Now, as I'm talking to students, they're often, I ask, what do you want to study? They're like, oh, game studies. They want to become a gamer. And I'm like, oh, you just want to be a Twitch star, don't you? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's kind of like being an NBA or, football pro. Probably not going to happen. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of luck. But if you like games, join us in cybersecurity. We got CTFs. So like Katie and Madeline, you're both involved with CTFs, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, this past fall, Katie and I teamed up with some other students we met at a summer program to compete in the National Cyber League competition. So that was awesome just to be able to connect with other high school students that don't actually live near us, because I'm in New Jersey, Katie's in Texas, and I forget where our other two teammates were from.
California, really cool. I think, and New York, maybe?
California and New York, yeah. So it's cool how you can bring people together from all over the country and unite them with their love of cybersecurity. So that was an awesome experience.
And it's so easy doing it like we're doing this right now. Just you can do everything virtually, right?
Exactly. And I actually had a follow-up question. You mentioned Cyber Patriot, and so we were wondering, how did you first get involved with Cyber Patriot?
Certainly. I just started teaching at Bellevue University. So this was about 10 years ago. Yeah, because Cyber Patriot, it's in its 13th or 14th year, lose track. Anyway, so in the city where I work, Bellevue, Nebraska, they have multiple high schools with Cyber Patriot teams. So I just reached out to one of the high schools and I talked with their Cyber Patriot coach. And he's a US Air Force veteran, but he worked in weather, global weather. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. I just think this is really cool. I don't really know anything about IT and cybersecurity. I'm like, cool. Because then we work together. He takes care of the students and helps us take care of a lot of the administrative. I take care of the teaching. And so together, we're able to work, and we've been working together for about a dozen years now, helping students who have been able to translate their experience in Cyber Patriot into careers. I've had multiple students go into the military or just go into industry, but be able to say they have experience from NCL, National Cyber League, or Cyber Patriot in the interview and put that on their resume. See, a common problem, because my kids are now a little older in their 20s, but when they were younger, getting jobs can be a challenge. You need experience to get a job, but how do you gain that experience? I'll tell you what, Cyber Patriot and NCL is experience that then you can show to employers. Very valuable experience. And any employers that are watching, if you get someone and you see on their resume that they have Cyber Patriot or NCL experience, ask them about it. It's real experience in how to secure operating systems and networks. And hopefully if they have that experience, the interviewee, they can then explain. So it's really a great way to build towards a career.
That's very great. That's obviously why Madeline and I both compete in NCL and I do Cyber Patriot. And one thing I've always enjoyed is kind of the team aspect. So how do you think that having teams of students helps to enrich their knowledge more than an individual competition would?
That's a great question. So I sometimes like to do this to my students. So what have you learned about team building? So I'm going to throw the question back to you or to Madeline.
I know for me, I've liked being able to kind of split up tasks and work on something smaller, but then all together kind of checking each other and making sure we're all kind of doing well.
And I think for me, definitely even collaborating virtually with just Katie, but also when competing in NCL, I've learned that patience is really important because when you're dealing with time zones, people have different priorities. It can be a little bit difficult. So making sure that you have clear communication with your team, that has definitely helped me develop those communication skills. And I know I'm going to be a better teammate from now on because of that.
I love it because you basically answered the question for me. Thank you. So that's a trick for students, by the way. When I don't have a good answer right away, I'll just throw it back to my students as a teacher. So just let you know. Anyway, no, because you provided the answer: communications, teamwork, leadership, maturity. So here's a little known fact. I've talked to chief information officers, chief information security officers around the globe. When they're hiring cybersecurity positions, of course, they want the technical skills, but just as much as that, they want those 4 skills. They want someone who can explain what they're doing, can document. They want someone who can collaborate with others as a team and then help decide tasks, that leadership. And then tied to all of this, so what makes a really good cybersecurity professional? It's the maturity. Because bad things happen. We sometimes find things that are, really, can be a major problem. Like right before we're recording this, there was the SolarWinds breach, which has caused headaches throughout the US and the world. What do you do when something bad happens? But when you have that maturity, don't panic. So, which is one of my favorite lines from a book. Let's see, do you know which book starts with the line, "Don't panic"? Oh, you
I'm
got
not
to
a
know.
loss.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I've actually read that.
I have it on my shelf too. I just didn't remember the first line.
Do you know why the answer is 42?
Don't actually.
Not.
What's the ASCII value for 42? You probably don't know that.
No, I don't.
Not off the
Star.
top of my head.
Star. And what does star mean in computers? It's a wild card. And
Yeah.
it can mean anything, right? So when Douglas Adams wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's why he chose 42 to equal star, meaning anything. Anyway, geek trivia right there. When I found that out a few years ago, just kind of blew my mind. Anyway, you're showing the skills of leadership, of teamwork, of that maturity right now. I actually had this epiphany like 8 years ago when I was doing podcasts for actually one of the leading human hackers, Chris Hadnagy at socialengineer.org. Did a podcast with him talking about what are the acquired skills. And again, maturity. When all heck is breaking loose, you know what to do. So that's what you've learned how to do, and time management. So many benefits of taking part in these competitions beyond just learning those technical skills.
Amazing. And so in addition to competitions like Cyber Patriot, what other competitions or activities would you recommend to a student who does enjoy Cyber Patriot already?
Certainly. Build beyond that. National Cyber League. Just look for your local CTFs. So just Google CTF Capture the Flag. They take place at many different cybersecurity conferences, and there's many others that you can participate in. And again, don't worry if you're new. What you can often do is just say, hey, we're new. And what's fun is that often the organizers will be like, cool, and they can pair you up, and you can maybe be paired with someone with more experience that you can then learn from. And then you pay it forward by helping others. And really, so that's why I love teaching, by the way, because I love to learn. Lifelong learner, best way to learn, teach someone else. So A, look for different types of competitions. B, reach out to your community to find out if they need help with their cybersecurity. Your community group, church, synagogue, whatever the religious, sometimes they need someone just to help. Or reach out to maybe some older adults. Go to a senior home and find, are there any seniors that, and this would be once everything's settled with COVID, by the way, of course, safety is always first. But find out, are there any seniors that maybe need help with their computers? You can charge a little bit of a fee for it, but then say, hey, can I use you as a reference? And that's worth its weight in gold as you're going for other jobs or going for scholarships. Because it's, a lot of the seniors may have already been an executive in business. And they'll be like, oh yeah, please, help me fix my computer and I'll be happy to provide a reference for you. And then that makes that next step in finding a job so much easier. As I said, reach out to others within the community. There's other groups such as ISC Squared. ISC2.org is the website. It's the CISSP certification. Madeline, you mentioned ISACA, ISACA, ISACA.org. They have chapters. Reach out to your local chapter and just say, hey, I'm a student who's interested. Is there a way I can get involved? And again, knowing people throughout the industry, we're happy to bring in new talent because we see it. Lastly, also reach out to your teachers at your schools, teachers and guidance counselors, and say, hey, I'm interested. And make sure they're aware, and then your parents, because maybe your parents may know someone as well. So I love these questions. This is great.
So much good advice. I'm sure you've seen students in your teaching who have kind of been interested in it, but they're sort of afraid that cybersecurity is just a really hard field and they wouldn't be able to do well. So how would you encourage someone who's feeling that way to try it out?
As I mentioned earlier, we're all noobs. So don't be afraid of saying, I don't know. Actually, if you read Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational, he's one of these really smart Harvard or MIT or Princeton guys who actually studied about saying, I don't know. It's not just saying, well, I don't know. I don't know, but I want to learn. That gets you so far to saying, hey, I don't know how to start with cybersecurity. Where should I start? There are lots of really good resources that are readily available, like with Cyber Patriot, which actually has a step-by-step approach. Begin studying Security Plus. So let's just say most high schools have an FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. Did you know they have a cybersecurity component of that? Which is actually, the test is based on the Security Plus certification. I know this is because I wrote the first cybersecurity competition exam for FBLA. It was like 8 years ago or so. And I based it on the Security Plus certification. So get a book, by the way. Oh, I'm a big fan of Humble Bundle. Not associated with them, humblebundle.com. Often has cybersecurity books. You can get like 20 digital books for like $15. Yeah. And maybe you can talk your parents, hey, will you buy me books? And then just start reading. The Cybersecurity Canon out of Ohio State University. This is the Cybersecurity Book Hall of Fame. So you can go to that website and see what books you need to be reading. Look for the Hall of Fame winners. And then, again, just be that sponge and begin just reading all you can and just experiment. Another tip here.
Awesome. Thank you for all those resources. Oh, you have another tip?
Yes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So create your own virtual lab. Okay. Create your own play area, your own sandbox. Okay. Find an old computer that you can put Linux on. Get a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And this is where you can break things. I dare you to break it. Why? Because then you get to fix it. And really, where do you learn? With fixing things. That's a lot of what IT people do continually. It's just learn how to fix things. So yeah, develop your own home lab. And then again, when you're interviewing for a job and they say, where do you get your IT experience? Well, I have my own home lab, and then you can discuss it with the interviewer and they'll probably be like, cool. So, it doesn't have to cost a lot to begin to get into this.
Amazing. Okay, thank you for that. And now I have a quick question, bringing it back to your journey as an educator. So at Bellevue University, can you think of any interactions with a student that had a particularly big impact on you?
Ooh, so many where, again, I've been able to watch them in their journey as a beginning student where they didn't know very much to the point where they get hired into sometimes some very high level positions. Just watching that both in the university. So I had one student actually, so this was when I was back in industry, almost 20 years ago. I was running security for an international organization and I was able to bring in an intern. So I actually got an intern out of Ball State University out of Indiana. Well, then we lost contact. And then about 5 or so years ago, he contacted me at a conference and goes, hey, Ron, I don't know if you remember me, but I was your intern back, and now he's a chief information security officer for a national organization. So being able to see success stories is just what is so exciting. And just knowing that, for the high school students watching this, success will come in small chunks. You're not going to be an overnight success. So find small wins to do it. Getting scholarships. There are lots of scholarship opportunities in IT, computer science, and cybersecurity. The small wins when you're able to solve a problem in a CTF or being able to help someone fix their computer and then get using them as a reference. So helping the students find those small wins is really where I gain value. Quick side story though. This kind of gets back to the students who kind of got into trouble. So in mentoring high school students, I've had 2 at least, who have been suspended for getting too curious on their school's network. They didn't have their own playground. They were kind of bored in class and began exploring too much and found things that they shouldn't and going to places where they shouldn't. So just, again, building your own play area where you can experiment and then learn from those is really going to be the value. But I really just love watching people learn and grow. And that's what I enjoy about educating.
So I know as a lot of our audience kind of grows up and goes to college, they might be looking for ways that they can kind of start entering the field more than they would in high school. So as a professor, have you seen any opportunities that are geared specifically for college students?
Definitely, even high school students. Getting a job on a help desk, sometimes called a service desk, or just IT support. Many organizations just have an internal group, to call, hey, my computer's not working, that the internal employees call. It's often an entry-level position. Granted, it's not cybersecurity specific, but what you learn there is you learn how to interact with people. You learn a lot about IT. You learn about the internal systems for the organization. And then you can make contacts within the organization. You work at a support desk, help desk job, for 6 months, maybe a year, and then you find contacts within their IT or programming or cybersecurity. And that's where you learn how to social engineer your next job. What do I mean by that? Human hacking is a part of what we do. It's called open source intelligence, Google it, but it's learning about people and then just not being afraid to connect with them. Sometimes one of the hardest things to do is just go to someone and say, hi. Granted, virtual handshakes now, or maybe it's fist bumps, I don't know. But just saying, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this career. Can you tell me what you do? You can do that. It's easy when you're internal to a company. And very well could lead to that next job. I actually had that happen. I was working for TD Ameritrade as an IT security engineer. And I met one of the leaders and I just had a conversation with him over coffee. And before long, he actually offered me a job as a manager. So much easier. So it's really just by being willing to step out of your comfort zone, starting the conversation by just, hi, tell me what you do. People love to talk about themselves. So just, you don't have to have all the answers, just have some questions to ask and just see where it can take you. So just, as you've noticed, common theme I have is just, reducing your own fear. So often we stop ourselves from our own progress. So these are fantastic questions, Katie and Madeline.
Amazing. Thank you again for that. And before we move on to some of the other things you've done, we've mentioned that you are a professor at Bellevue University, but can you just clarify to our audience, what is it that you teach at the university, as well as some of your major contributions to the community?
Certainly. So I started their cybersecurity studies program, built it from 2 students to we have almost 1,000 students now, both the undergraduate and graduate students spread worldwide. I've kind of actually stepped away a little bit from solely cybersecurity, where now my role is actually taking care of our general education information technology courses. All students need to take some type of a technology course now, whether it's on how to use Office 365, the basics of information technology, or we even have a cybersecurity and privacy class. So I oversee all of our classes that students need to take for general education, which is really what I enjoy, because I don't like just being put into a box just for cybersecurity. I love the generalization of all things information technology, computer science, programming, and cybersecurity. So being able to help students, and sometimes it's, my job is also to help mentor their instructors. So mentoring our instructors who are teaching. So we use a lot of what's known as an adjunct professor. Just so you know, an adjunct professor is someone who's employed part-time by a university. They usually have some other job. If you have an adjunct professor, find out what else they do. Social engineer your professors, by the way. Ask them questions. We love it, by the way. We love it. You say, hey, what do you do besides teaching? And then you can strike up having a good conversation and building a relationship with your professor. Why do that? Well, if you ever need extra time and you've already built up that goodwill, it's actually really easy to get extensions, or a lot easier to assignments. Because we know sometimes life happens and the student may need a little bit of extra time. But if you already built that goodwill, then it really makes it easier, for the instructor or the professor to give you a little bit of an extension if we already know you're good for it and you're a diligent student. So if you notice, there's a lot of ways to hack your environment, which I love teaching.
These are amazing tips. We're getting kind of close to time, so I wanted to close out with a few questions. You have a TED Talk with a very intriguing title, so maybe you could tell us a little more about that.
Sure. It's really simple. Hackers Wanted. Why did I call it that? Well, because there's multiple points to this. First of all, we need more hackers. What is a hacker? To me, it's just someone who's innately curious, trying to solve problems in unique ways, overcoming or circumventing limitations, whether it's on a computer or in life. I love the website, Life Hacker, if you will. We need more hackers solving problems. Again, businesses want to hire problem solvers. We have a huge cybersecurity talent gap. We don't have enough people to fill all of the jobs that are available. That's also why Hackers Wanted. Why else? To go after the bad guys. Think about how you define a hacker and then look up the official definition. And it's not all just the bad guys. There's a lot of really good white hat hackers out there who are just trying to do good in the world using our hacking skills for good. But it's working with students and teachers to build our cybersecurity community. I also use the word hacker because it draws people. Hacking is an interesting topic. When I ask, hey, are you a hacker? A lot of people are like, maybe, I don't want to admit it. I'm like, cool, yeah, I'm a hacker. Solely good, solely on the side of trying to help people, and then we can build in ethics as a part of it. Don't use your skills for bad. With great power comes great responsibility, right? You learn that often the hard way. So I really encourage you, check out my TED Talk, Hackers Wanted. You can contact me through Twitter, RonW123, on my LinkedIn, or through my business websites.
That's definitely a very interesting topic, because I know that when I first started out in cybersecurity, I thought that a hacker was strictly the bad guy, but then I learned about white hat hacking, gray hat hackers, black hat hackers. So definitely kind of changes your whole perspective. And so unfortunately, we are out of time, but Katie and I wanted to thank you so much again for volunteering your time with us today, because we definitely think that your perspective and your career path will give a lot of insight into our student audience, but also the rest of our audience members who may already be in the field.
Awesome, outstanding. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And then for everybody watching, all the resources that Ron mentioned will be around or near the recording of this interview. Thank you all for watching.